Hello, my name is Mr. Wilkinson. I'm a primary school teacher with Inverclyde Council, currently working at Kings Oak Primary School, and this is a short series of videos designed to help you with numerals and numeral sequences, that is, numbers and the ordering of numbers. For many of these activities, I will be using numeral cards, which are basically cards with numbers printed onto them. It will really help you if you can have something similar available to you while you follow along these activities, but they don't need to look like mine. You could either write the numbers onto a piece of paper and simply cut them up with scissors. You could write them onto post-it notes, anything essentially to ensure that you have the numerals in front of you. You can just move them about the learning space. So, choose from the Chili Challenge options available to you on the page. If you are finding things a bit too hard, never be afraid to drop down to an easier level. But if you are finding them easy, then simply keep on working hard and watch for more videos coming soon to help you with your early arithmetical learning. Hello and welcome to the extra spicy challenge video. This video is an example video filled with ideas for activities for you to do with your grown-up to practice your numerals from 1 to 100. You might recognise lots of these activities from the green seal planner that you may have used with your teacher in school. Okay, so I'm going to start by doing some numeral sequences forwards and backwards, and for this I'm going to need my numeral cards. I'm going to start with using just a group of 5 of them in a sequence in order, but when I place them down I'm going to place them randomly and out of order. So the first job will be to look at these and to put them into order. I'm going to look, I'm going to notice that all of them start with 3 tens, which means they're all part of the 30s. And then I know that 33 will likely come first. And from there, it's relatively simple for me to work out that from 33, I can go on to 34, from 34 to 35. And that means I can slot in the last two, 36, 37. It all looks good to me, but to make sure I'm going to count out loud and point to each number as I count, and this will be for you to do as well after you've ordered them. So 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Once your grown-ups check that, you can try a different number sequence. So here is another one. This time I'm going to use 6 cards. Getting quite tricky. I'm going to make sure that they're all laid out, but when I lay them out, they're going to be in a muddled up order. And again, I'm going to look at them. I'm going to notice that they all seem to start with an 8 in the tens place, so they must all be 80s. And the smallest one looks like it is 84, so I'm going to put that one first, and then I can work out from that. I know that 84 is followed by 85. I know that 85 is followed by 86. 87. Can't be 89, so it must be 88. 89, therefore, goes there. And again, I'm just going to make sure that they're all correct by pointing to them and saying them in turn. 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89, which looks good to me. For our next activity, we're going to be sequencing what's called decade numerals. So your grown-up is going to make sure that your numeral sequence contains only numbers which end in a 0, or other words, multiples of 10. So for my first numeral sequence, I'm just going to place it out again, no particular order, And your job to begin with is going to be to place them into order. So when I look at this, I know that they're all multiples of 10, so I can look at how many 10s each one is worth. 10 is just one of itself. I'm counting up in 10s, and there we go. 10, 2 10s, 20, 30, 40, and then to make sure that I'm correct and everything sounds right, to really get it to stick into our heads, we're going to point to them and count as we go. So 10, 20, 30, 40. I'm going to do the same again backwards. 40, 30, 20, 10. And once you feel quite confident with that, you can move up to some of your bigger 10 numbers, still staying within the range of 1 to 100. So again, I'm going to place out my numeral cards again. No real order. Going to look at them. Again, they're all multiples of 10. Going to look for one that I recognise. Got 8 10s, 80, 9 10s, 90, 6 10s. I know is smaller than 7 and 8 and 9. So 60 looks to be the one that comes first. Then I'm going to think 60, 70, 80. So this must be 90. I'm going to have a look. And again, check by counting forwards. 60, 70, 80, 90. And then just for good measure, go backwards as well. 90, 80, 70, 60. This next activity is very similar to the last one. Again, we're using numeral sequences and using our cards, which are already in order, but this time our sequence is going to cross one of our tens numbers. I'll show you what I mean. So again, I'm going to put out the numbers just in a very random order. But this time you'll see that our sequence, some of the numbers start with a 7, so 7 tens, they must be in their 70s. And some of our numbers start with an 8, 8 tens, so they must be in our 80s. And so to put this into order, I'm going to need to work out which set of numbers is going to come first. So what I might start by doing is by grouping all of my 80s numbers and then all of my 70s numbers, and thinking I know that 70s will come before our 80s. They are the smaller set of numbers. And now looking at this, I know that 77 looks to be the smallest. It's followed by 78, and that's followed by 79. And then after 79, that's when we go into our 80s. 80 being the smallest number of our 80s, just 8 tens, no extra ones. After 80 comes 81, and after 81 comes 82. And so now to check forwards, I can go 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. And I can even, if I'm feeling really clever, practice it backwards. 82, 81, 80, 79, 78, 77. Next, we are going to order numerals and cards which end with the same numeral. I'll show you an example. So this is all mixed up, no particular order. You'll notice that all of my cards end with the numeral 2. Once they're all out in your learning space, the first job is to put them all into order. So I'm going to have a look at this. I know for a fact that anything that only has a single digit is likely to be the smallest, so I'm going to put 2 there. I'm going to consider the rest of mine, and I'm going to pay special attention to the 10th digit, or the first digit in each of my numbers, and order therefore. So I'm going to put that one there. 12, next being 22, and then comparing these two, they both end with a 2, but one is 32, the other is 42. Once I'm confident that I've got them all into order, I'm going to do the same as I've done with the ordering processes before, and I'm going to point them as I say them. 2, 12, 22, 32, 42. I can do the same thing again with another set of cards, again just making sure that every single one of my cards ends with the same digit. Again, don't need to be in particular order, that's just one. And again, looking, seeing which of the tens digits seems to be the smallest, moving forward to the biggest. And again, pointing to them as you say them. So I've got 47, 57, 67, and 77. And for the next activity, we're going to build upon all of the ordering numerals that we've done so far. This time, our numerals can end in any digit and begin with any digit. We're going to start with the range from 0 to 40, just to build things up, putting them in no particular order. And now it's really important, of course, that we look first of all at the first digit, or the tens digit, and then look at the other when we're doing our ordering. So for this one, I'm going to take the one that doesn't have a tens digit and make sure that one goes first. I'm then going to look at the tens digits of all of these ones. So we've got 2, 3s, or 30s, and one here which represents 10, so I know that that's the next biggest. And then when I've got my two that both begin with a 3, a 30, then one ends in a 2, the other ends in a 3. I know that 2 comes before 3. And as always, I will check them through by pointing to them and saying them as I go. So we've got 2, 10, 32, 33. Okay, and once you're sure those are correct, you can move on to the harder range. So then you might want to try doing numbers in the range 40 to 100, spreading those out. And again, no particular order. Considering them, looking of course at the first digit, the tens digit. It's tricky ones here. I've got 4, so 40, 80, 90, 70. So I think 40 is smallest. I think that 70 is the next smallest. And here, even now, I'm not really having to look at the ones digit that comes afterwards, because I know that the tens all come in a nice order, but I do need to make sure that I can say the numbers. So again, I'm going to say 42, 77, 81, 97. This is really, really good for making sure that all of your numeral recognition and all of your ordering can come into play. And then to make things really tricky, you can of course increase the number of cards that you use and increase the range using any number from 1 to 100 and seeing if you can put them in order. So I'm going to try all 8 of these now and see if I can do them. Just place them out all in any order. And it can be a real challenge. Making sure, okay, we know that 2 comes first. We know that I'm going to start grouping one. So I've got 1 starting there. I'm going to put my 2 ones that start with 3 together. And then already this is making it easier because I know that the 10s come next. There's no 2 digits at the beginning, so no 20s, but there are 30s, which I've already got in order, 32 and 33. After the 30s come the 40s, so 42 goes there. Then there's no 50s, no 60s. We've got 77, 81 from last time, and 97 there. And as always, checking it all through, making sure that we're saying the right numbers in their comparative order. 2, 10, 32, 33, 42, 77, 81, 97, all of these going in order from smallest to biggest, and that really shows that you've got a good grasp of where your numbers come in relation to each other. So to make sure that you can order your numerals effectively, it's important to make sure that you can recognize numerals when asked. So for this activity, just taking a brief selection of numbers, any numbers, 1 to 100, and placing them out in your learning space in front of you. Doesn't necessarily matter which order, just as long as you can see them all clearly. And for this, your grown-up may ask you essentially to point to certain numbers that are available in front of you. So if they asked point to 84, you would try to work out which one 84 is. I heard 80, which means it must begin with an 8-digit. 84 must be that one. Your grown-up might then ask for another digit, so this time they might say point to 31. Now, I've got two options here. I could point to this card or this card. Both of them seem to start with a 3, so a 30, although this has a 3 and a 0, so that's 30 only, whereas this one, 30 and 1, must be 31, so I would point to this one. And you can repeat, of course, with any numbers in the range 0 to 100. And going hand in hand with your numeral recognition is your numeral identification, being able to identify numbers when asked to. So again, for this one, just a selection of numeral cards placed out in any order, nice and clearly, in your learning space. And for this one, I've got the help of the lovely Miss McClurg, who is going to help me along here. Your grown-up will point to a card and they will simply ask, what number is this? And then you, or in this case Miss McClurg, will tell us the number that they have identified. So, what number is this?
12.
And what's this number?
88.
And this number?
33.
And we'll continue, obviously, with this. You can identify the rest of the numerals in front of you, but of course you can also select new numerals, any numerals from 0 to 100, just making sure you recognise which numerals are which when asked. For the next activity, we're going to use something called Numeral Tracks. Just like your numeral cards, these are really easily made. I'm going to use these flashy yellow ones here, but they can quite simply be made very, very easily just by placing or drawing numbers onto a strip of paper, then cutting up with scissors. Or you could even, quite simply, use numeral cards placed out and ordered in the same order, just as long as you've got a nice long sequence of numbers. So this sequence of numbers goes from 26 to 35, but this sequence of numbers goes from 86 to 95. It doesn't matter which numbers they go between, so long as they are all in order and all visible. Now, we're going to start by using these just to count forwards and backwards. So for the first part, you're going to watch me as I do so, just as an example. So I'm going to start at 27, going forwards. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and then from 33 backwards, 33, 32, 31, 30, and then from 30 forwards, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And you can do that as often as you like, going both forwards and backwards, and then it may be time for your grown-up to point to the numbers whilst you say, in this case, I am going to point to the numbers and the lovely Miss McClurg is going to say the numbers as I point to them. Here's the example. So from 88, going forwards.
88, 89, 90, 91, 92,
And stop. 92 going backwards.
92, 91, 90, 89,
And 89 forwards again.
89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95.
Okay, and you can do this as much as you like, going forwards and backwards, up and down the numeral track to really reinforce which numbers come before and after each other. You can also use a blank strip of paper or blank post-it notes or anything. I'm actually just going to use a numeral track, but use it face down, just so it is covering my numeral track, and you can use this to count as the numbers go along. So we're going to start from 26. Miss McClurg is going to count along with me again, starting from 26.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
And then another step up this time. We are going to count, but Miss McClurg is going to say the numbers before I reveal them to really kind of reinforce that checking part. So, starting from 26.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Okay, and we can do that again, forwards and backwards. And then you can even use numeral tracks to ask really tricky questions, or your grown-ups can use it to ask really tricky questions, pardon me. For example, I can put the numeral track, cover it over here, and I can ask Miss McClurg, what number is this?
87,
And if that's 87, what number is under here?
88,
And we can check to see if she's correct, which of course she is. You can do that going backwards as well. So if I ask Miss McClurg, what's this number?
92,
And that's 92. What number is under here?
91.
We'll check. And she is, of course, correct. And that's a really good way of just building that number knowledge. What numbers come before each other, what numbers come after each other, and you can use that to help your ordering as shown in previous activities. Okay, and for our last couple of activities, we're going to be using a 100 square. We're using this nicely printed one on our numeracy blueprints board, but you or your grown-up can quite easily make one on a piece of paper just by drawing a 10 by 10 grid, as long as it has the numbers all going across in sequential order, grouped into their tens, finishing on 100. You can also find templates that can be gotten from online, anything essentially to make sure that you just have the numbers laid out like this in front of you. And then we're also just going to be using some small counters. I'm going to be using these little cylinders, but again, you could use small shreds of paper, torn up post-its, coins would work just as well, anything really to make sure you can just cover one number at a time. And the entire premise of this activity is that you will look away while your grown-up secretly puts a counter on 3 of the different numbers on your 100 square. And then when you come back, you will have to come and see if you can work out which numbers have been covered. So for example, if I'm going to look at this red one first, I know that the numbers before it are 11, 12, and the numbers after it are 14, 15. I know from my forwards and backwards sequences that it goes 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this number must be 13, and you can take it away and check, well done, if you got it right. For the next one, I'm going to look up and I'm going to see that all of these numbers look like they are in their 30s. I've got 31 there, 32, 33. So it stands to reason that this red counter is also in the 30s sequence. And in fact, it comes just after 35. So just after 35, I know, is 36. For this number, it's a little bit trickier. It's in a higher sequence, but I know, again, that it's in the 60s. And actually, if I look down this column as well, I can see, just like when we were doing our off-decade sequencing, we could count up going 5, 15, 25, 35, 45, 55. So I think this number, especially if it's definitely in its 60s, is going to be 65. And I can check it, and it looks like I was correct in that. If your grown-up is feeling like really giving you a challenge, they can cover up multiple numbers at a time to make this really tricky. Okay, so I know that this number is 33, but if I'm trying to work out what this last red one is here, I'm going to need to know this one and this one before I can know this one. So if that's 33, I suppose I could try counting up 33, so maybe 34, 35, 36. And if I come back at it from my backwards sequences, that's 38, so I suppose this one must be 37. Yes, yeah, so I'm going to be fairly confident with 36. And looks like right there I was correct. And so this is just a really fun game, a way that you can play to make sure that you know where your numbers stand in relation to each other. And so for our last activity of the extra spicy video, we're going to be using a blank 100 square. So this is a square with 100 smaller squares arranged 10 by 10, all blank, no numerals, okay? We're going to use the one on our big fancy whiteboard, but you could quite easily make one by drawing it out onto a piece of paper, or you could find a template online and use any software that allows you to either draw or type in over the boxes just as easily. So in order to help you, your grown-up, or in this case me, is going to fill out one of the columns for you already. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to count across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to fill out the 6 columns. So 6 goes here. And then just like we were counting in our off-decade sequencing, moving on down, but your grown-up can do this for you. You don't need to do this. So 6, 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, 86, and 96. And once that's been done, your grown-up is going to give you a series of challenges by asking you to work out which numbers are in other squares. So the first challenge, they may or may not put a dot, let's say, in this square and ask you, what number goes here? You're going to look at this, and the only clues we've really got is we know the number that comes just before it, which is 26. So we use our numeral knowledge and we think, what number comes after 26? I think it's probably 27, and so I can fill that in right there. I can do the same, but before. Okay, they may ask, which number goes here? Okay, the only clue again that I have is I've got my 86 here. I know, having done my number square activities beforehand, that all of this row is my 80 numbers, and the 80 number that comes before 86 is 85. If your grown-up really wants to challenge you, however, they can ask you to identify the numbers maybe 2 after or 2 behind. For example, if I ask what number goes here, now I've really got to think really, really hard, because this is 56, but I don't know what this is, so I'm going to have to work out this number so that I can work out this number. So I've got 56 here. I know that I can count upwards to 57, so if I count backwards, it's 56, 55, and making use of my numeral sequences, 56, 55, 54. And you can continue in this way. You can even use numbers, of course, that you've already identified and then ask, which number is this, keeping your sequences going. So 56, 55, 54, that must be 53, so this must be 52. Okay, and you can identify as much of the square as you like, and then at some point it's going to be time for, it's getting a bit too easy, start it all again, Okay, you can use a new fresh 100 square. You can erase whatever you've done beforehand with a rubber, and your grown-up can start again by filling in a brand new column for you, and you can see which numbers you can identify from there. Thanks for watching all of the extra spicy challenge video. If you found this a bit tricky, keep going backwards and forwards, practicing all of your sequences and identifications. If you found it pretty straightforward, then keep an eye out for new videos coming soon to help you with all of your early arithmetical learning.